Hello, and welcome to the Lost and Found podcast. Today we are continuing to talk about Dale Kerstetter in Gone Platinum Part 2. Let's begin. Dale Kerstetter was very much a typical American man. He had a large family that he was devoted to, and after serving his country was a longtime employee of the Corning Glassworks factory in Bradford, Pennsylvania. In 1987, during the course of an ordinary overnight security guard shift, something very extraordinary happened. Dale would go missing during his shift, along with a very valuable amount of platinum. A masked intruder was also seen in the plant that night. The question still remains, was Dale a victim in the theft or an accomplice? So in this episode, we're going to do sort of a follow-up on some information that has come to light after the two articles I posted. Granted, a large part of this is mostly speculation given the age of the disappearance, but definitely worth mentioning. It seems the more we look into this case, the deeper this mystery goes. Oftentimes, well after I publish an article, I'm contacted by someone with knowledge or even some kind of a connection to the missing person. I've had a few of these encounters in my continued research on Dale Kerstetter's disappearance. I will say that these are merely theories and speculation, but most of the people who work with Dale at Corning have either since passed away or are at an advanced age where their memories of that time are vague. I feel that the information is interesting enough to share with my listeners and anyone who has an interest in this disappearance. I found in an article from 1990 in the Pittsburgh Press, they mentioned that Patrick Foley took a break from local union negotiations to view the surveillance tape. I'm not sure what, if any, the union negotiations could have had to do with the theft, or what the climate was of the factory at the time of the theft, considering they were in the midst of trying to negotiate a new contract. Chris Perry was also quoted in the same article about Dale's mysterious disappearance as saying, "It doesn't make any sense to give up a lifelong job, a career, and all of those years of service. Interesting, as that is exactly what the people say who are convinced Dale was a victim." I will say, as far as a current Corning employee being part of the platinum theft, that is a definite possibility. I am told that there would be times when workers would occasionally be at the plant overnight, even on the weekends, for reasons such as to work on machines that would need to be used during the day or during that week. So a worker being at the plant in the off hours on the weekend, initially anyway, wouldn't have been noteworthy. I also saw in a newspaper article from 1990 that the furnace was only fired up a few times a year, which a current or former Corning employee would have possibly known. I've recently spoken with someone who had an elderly neighbor who worked at Corning that did talk about the theft years ago. I will not mention this worker's name, but I will say that he has since passed away. He did appear to have knowledge about the theft. He apparently talked about where the platinum was sent, he said Canada, and how much it was worth and how much money was received for it. This person also said this man had a slight limp, which seems to be the case with the masked intruder. He made mention of the gas wells nearby, which many people speculate is where Dale's body was placed. This person believed the worker knew more than just the average person would about the theft. Highly speculative, I know, which is why I'm not naming the worker. But it brings up a valid question. How many people, if any, who worked at Corning knew who was responsible for the theft? I'm sure some of the workers thought they knew who could have been responsible. Any workers that had specific information may have been scared to come forward to the authorities or Corning, especially considering after Dale's encounter with the intruder, he disappeared. I'm also curious if there was any effort put forth by the Bradford PD or Pennsylvania State Police to interview all of the workers at Corning. As we know, in the beginning anyway, a thorough job was not done to investigate the disappearance, as the effort was more towards investigating the theft. I had a phone call a few years back with someone who knew a man from Bradford who walked just like the intruder. He gave me the name, which I won't mention, of the person who has now passed away, and he said this person also had a close friend who lived very near the Corning factory. Another account I was told was of a teenager at the time from Bradford who had an interesting story to tell. He wanted to remain anonymous, but he remembered going to this person's house with some friends when they were underage and drinking with this older guy. The guy would apparently supply them with alcohol. He said that on a few occasions the man would brag that when he needed cash, he would just take some platinum scraps in to sell. He went on to say that this older man would then go and retrieve a 5-gallon bucket filled with platinum and show it to them. It seems many people have a theory or idea of who is responsible for this crime. Whether there is any validity to it or not is another story. Another possible scenario that I've considered that hasn't really been brought up is, what if the platinum wasn't taken just to sell? I think it deserves consideration. I did hear talk of how stealing things from Corning wasn't exactly a rare occurrence, mainly just fairly inexpensive things. But what if the masked intruder had it out for Corning? It's not verified, but there was talk that pensions were cut, and we know by newspaper articles that many people had lost their job. Then the word is out that Corning is selling its Bradford plant. I'm sure there must have been concern among the workers when that news broke that even more jobs would be lost. If someone wanted to get back at Corning, they would have to act quickly before they sold the Bradford plant. The goal of the plan may have been to punish Corning, and they knew this would, not only stealing something valuable from them, but the negative press they would get out of it. Then you have to think, where would Dale have fit into this scenario? Is it possible that Dale may have had some knowledge of what was going to go on that night and just agreed not to alert anyone? If that was the case, then he was double-crossed, because in the end, if that was a past or current employee, Dale would have known the identity, and perhaps they felt they couldn't take the risk of him telling someone. Anyway, just something to think about, especially considering that just 4 days before the theft, the news had broke about the Bradford plant being sold. I just can't logically see any scenario where Dale Kerstetter would have willingly gone on the run. His family believes he would have been able to retire from Corning the next year. He had never lived away from the area except his time in the military, and he had many friends, an elderly mother that he was very close to, and 6 children. He even had his teenage son living with him. You would have to be quite materialistic to literally walk away from your entire life forever just because you came into a large amount of money. And by all accounts, that wasn't Dale. I do want to mention another fact that most people don't know. As I previously stated, Dale had long since divorced his first wife Nancy when he disappeared. Dale's second marriage lasted about 5 years and was to a woman who actually worked at Corning Glass Works and continued to during the time of his disappearance. They had long since divorced, however, when Dale went missing, and the couple had no longer had any contact, and of course she isn't believed to have had anything to do with the theft or disappearance. Just something I thought you listeners would find interesting. I also talked to someone who had some relevant information to share about the Corning factory soon after Dale disappeared. It appears that after he went missing, the security company Pinkerton was now given the job of guarding Corning. I recently spoke with this person who, shortly after the disappearance, seemingly replaced Dale as an overnight security guard. He gave me some information about his insights and how things were done when he was employed there anyway. Something interesting I'll start with is he did tell me that his boss, who also worked for Pinkerton, actually played the masked intruder in the Unsolved Mysteries segment. This person was just out of high school and worked overnight guard shifts mainly during the week at Corning. He said that most people were very reluctant to talk about anything Dale Kerstetter related, but the gossip he would hear around the factory was that this was an inside job done by Corning for the insurance money because the platinum that was stored and used there was industrial grade and not really worth as much as the company was claiming. It was also surprising to the workers that the burglar knew so many specifics about where the platinum was. He said no one in any of the talk he heard thought Dale was in on the theft. He said even the higher-ups at Pinkerton speculated that Dale was collateral damage for the real criminals. He also mentioned that the other workers had nothing nice to say about Patrick Foley after they saw the interview he gave concerning Dale on Unsolved Mysteries. This former security guard also gave me a few details about what his security shift entailed, which, given how soon it was after Dale's disappearance, I would assume was very similar to Dale's, so I wanted to mention it. He said his procedure was solitary. He had a large time clock he wore on his rounds with a skeleton keyhole in it and different checkpoints around the plant with keys that he used to show he had checked the area. He wasn't really informed what the past security procedures were, but he did not have to check in with anyone unless there was an incident or issue. Something very interesting he talked about was something I hadn't yet heard before. He said there was an alarm attached to the kiln. It was one of those pull-down lever setups. He doesn't think there was any kind of lock on it, so anybody could have just pulled it to shut the alarm off. He said that right in front of the stairwell leading to the top of the kiln was a sign that said something like, "Platinum alarm, do not shut off." It has been many years, and that was as best as he could recall the exact wording, but he remembered thinking at the time the sign was lacking common sense. I had also considered whether it was placed there after Dale went missing, but I would highly doubt it. The security guard was told the burglar cut all of the platinum out of the kiln, and Robert Stack mentions in the Unsolved Mysteries segment that the new owners of the factory no longer use platinum in their processing. He also told me that during his job interview, he was asked what he would do if the bad guys came back, where he responded, "I'm unarmed and making minimum wage. I'd hand them my door card and tell them good luck." He started the next week. So the revelation that someone would have had to shut the kiln alarm off before cutting the platinum out could work both ways. Either someone very familiar with that area knew they would need to turn it off before proceeding. On the other hand, if the sign was so direct and it was a simple pull-down lever, then anyone could have accomplished turning it off. He also told me that the kiln area was pretty decently lit. He said it wasn't as bright as on the factory floor, but more than enough to see what you were doing and where you were going without any danger of running into things. He also said it was bright enough in that area to read the sign about the alarm. I want to give a shout out to another person who has done a substantial amount of work on the Dale Kerstetter disappearance, and that is Aaron Stoner. You may be familiar with his YouTube channel, and if you aren't, you should definitely check it out. It is under Aaron, Arrin, Stoner. He has a very interesting video about Dale that I would recommend watching. Aaron has also came across an unidentified John Doe that was found in the Otonabee River in Peterborough, Ontario, Canada on July 10, 1988. That is about 4 hours from Bradford. Sadly, only the head was found, and it had been removed with a very sharp blade, and it has yet to be identified. There has been a sketch circulated of an estimate of what the victim looked like. I personally do think the drawing has some similarities to Dale. Aaron has been in touch with the Peterborough Police in Canada. There is DNA on file for the John Doe, and he is hoping that Pennsylvania State Police will soon do a DNA comparison with Dale Kerstetter, as his family did provide a DNA sample years ago for comparison of any remains that would need to be checked. So far, he's having trouble getting the Pennsylvania State Police to respond to his query for an update on the case as to whether this has been done. Now here's an interview of someone who was very close to this disappearance. I am honored to have on my podcast the person whom I believe has done the most work on the disappearance of Dale Kerstetter, and that is his daughter, Penny Shaboey. She has spent many years doing whatever she could to try to find answers to her father's mysterious disappearance. I thought it was important to hear her impressions on the case and the interaction she's had with Corning and others over the years. Welcome, Penny, to my first case on the Lost and Found podcast.
Thank you.
So you and I have worked on this case a lot over the years since I first started researching it for my 2 articles. In fact, we have had interaction for many years prior to that when I was moderating the Unsolved Mysteries message board on Sitcoms Online, and you would reply to comments on your father's case. Dale's case certainly deserves more attention than it has been given, which is why I wanted to feature it as my first case. So tell me a little bit about the kind of father Dale was. What is a fond memory you have of him? What would you like the listeners to know about him?
Well, he was a very honest man. He didn't like a lie, as my grandmother had said. He taught me to give people the benefit of the doubt. He was just an all-around nice guy. I mean, he wasn't, abusive or anything. He worked a lot. He drank a lot.
Yeah.
Everything that goes with that. But, he enjoyed the outdoors. He was an avid hunter, fisher, trapper. He liked to cross-country ski. He liked to ride three-wheelers.
He was in a band
Just
also, correct?
oh well, yeah. Years ago, he had been in a country music band, and he enjoyed that. Yeah, my fondest memory of him is actually a little bit of a scary memory, and it's probably the first memory that I ever have. They say when you're a child, you probably don't remember things until you're about 4 or 5. And my older sister was out at the end of the driveway to catch the school bus. She had just started kindergarten, and she was eating a donut. And the neighbor's dog, it was a big German Shepherd. He was probably as big as her. She was only 5 or 6 at the time. And I was watching her out the living room window, and I remember being jealous because I wanted to go to school with her, and of course I couldn't.
Mm-hmm.
And this dog came and jumped on her, and it probably just got the donut out of her hand. Well, she screamed, and my father had just gone to bed. He was working a night shift, and he had gotten home, and he's the one that brought the donuts home, and he had just gone into the bedroom to go to bed, and he was in bed. He heard her scream, and he jumped out of bed. He grabbed a gun, and he opened the bedroom window, and he shot that dog dead off of my sister.
Oh, wow.
And the amazing thing about it was that I'm sure 2 seconds after he did it, he probably realized that, oh my God, I could have killed my daughter, but he was such a good shot. He was a very good marksman.
Yeah.
I'm sure that never even occurred to him that he would miss. And
wow.
honestly, if I was going to bet money, I would say he would have never missed either. But I just remember that, and it was just an incredibly heroic thing to do.
Yeah, that's quite a story.
The parental instinct kicks in. You see your child being attacked by a dog. What do you do?
Yeah. So take me back to 1987. Who first told you about your father's disappearance, and what day did you find out?
My sister did. She called me Sunday night, so this would have been after the township police had been called Sunday afternoon. And she called to let me know that he was missing. They couldn't find him. And, I initially thought that, I don't know, maybe he had gotten hurt somewhere in the plant and they just had to find him or something.
Did you live close to Bradford at the time?
No, I was living in the Washington, D.C. area.
Oh, okay. What did you and the family do when you first found out? Did you reach out to Dale's friends or coworkers to see if they had any information?
Yes. I probably the next day or so, I made arrangements for my job. I took a few days off and drove up to Bradford, and I did meet with a lot of his friends and his coworkers, and they all had an opinion one way or the other, and that's when I met with the people at Corning also.
Yeah, I was going to ask when and what was your initial interaction with Corning, and did you have any personal interaction with Patrick Foley or Chris Perry?
I did, yes, with Patrick Foley for sure, but I want to say that Chris, it's funny calling him Chris now because he was.
Yeah, he went by C. Dale Perry in the segment.
Perry at the time.
Yeah.
But yeah, they had me watch the tape to see if I could see, if what my impression was when Dale looked up into the camera, what my impression was that he was trying to convey.
And what was your impression of his expression?
Well, to me, it looked like he was looking up like, is anybody watching this? Can somebody see this? Is anybody going to come and help me?
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, he definitely looked incredibly serious.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
A look that I didn't ever really often or even really recall seeing him.
Wow.
Yeah, it was a very somber, serious look about him.
Yeah, that's interesting. Did the Bradford police or the Pennsylvania State Police interview you? And what type of questions did they ask you?
They did interview me. Basically, they just wanted to know if I had any idea where he might be, what might have happened, did I think he was involved in it? If so, what would he have done? Where would he have gone? Um, basically that was it.
Yeah. Well, what was your initial reaction about how your father disappeared? Did you initially expect that he would reappear?
Well, obviously, I was hoping he would.
Yeah.
I don't know. I guess I kind of really didn't want to think about it.
Yeah.
To be honest with you, I really
Yeah.
didn't have much of an opinion about that. I don't know. I just didn't want to think about what the possibilities could have been.
Yeah, I understand. What type of interaction did Corning have with your family in the weeks after he disappeared?
Basically none. I think the only interaction they really had was with me the day I went in and talked to them and they showed me the tape.
Yeah. Did your father ever mention anything about his job at Corning or his interaction or any problems he ever had there?
No, he never really talked about having any problems or anything there. I mean, uh, it was a typical factory job. You go in, you do your job, you do what's expected of you, and then you punch out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we'd mentioned earlier about the heroic act that Dale did concerning the forklift. I wanted you to let the listeners know how Corning thanked him for saving people's lives and valuable property.
Oh, it was ridiculous. I was there when I had gone up to visit him, and he showed me this piece of paper. It was literally an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper, and it said um, certificate of something,
Yeah.
and it just had his name on there and like the date. Like it really didn't have any details on it or anything. So I asked him what that was for, and that's when he told me the story about it, and that's how I knew about it. But that's all they did. But they gave him a piece of paper.
Oh,
It
wow.
was a generic piece of paper that anybody would get. An accommodation where the fill in the blank, the name and the date,
Wow.
kind of thing.
So, what is your response to Corning's statement that they also mentioned in the filing when the family initially tried to have Dale declared dead that Dale was deep in debt?
Well, that's simply not true. He was not deep in debt. He had a trailer payment and a car payment. And I guess if you're going to look at it that way, anybody that has a house payment or a car payment would be considered deep in debt if you had a 10-year mortgage on it, for example. But he had access to too many other funds if
Yeah.
he needed it. He had cash in the bank. I mean, it wasn't a lot, but $5,000 was a lot more back then than it is now.
Yeah.
He had his 401k. He had stock. I mean, I was doing very well, and him and I were close. I mean, he certainly could have asked me if he needed some money. I could have done something for him, but
Yeah.
yeah. So for them to make that comment, and I'm not even sure what their basis was to
Yeah.
make that comment.
Now, you were contacted by Corning just basically a few days after you officially had Dale declared dead, and I think the listeners would be interested to hear what the phone call was like.
Yeah, it was a little interesting to say the least. A guy called and introduced himself, and he said that he was the new head of security at Corning, and he wanted to know if he was going through all the old files, the open files, and he wanted to know if he should go ahead and close my father's file and, just get rid of it. And I told him absolutely not. It's an open case, and until they find him or his body, it's an open case. You leave it open. He seemed a little surprised about that.
Yeah, because just because he's officially declared dead, he's still missing.
Exactly. And I just thought the timing of it was very ironic that it was, within a week of me having him declared dead. I mean, they knew. They didn't come to the hearing, but they certainly knew what was going on.
Yeah, they were paying attention, weren't they?
Oh, absolutely they were. Absolutely they were. And then I went ahead and filed to get his 401k, his pension, his life insurance, and Corning did not make it easy.
Yeah, and they had to pay, what, 27 years of interest, correct?
Well, 27 years of interest on the life insurance, which in Pennsylvania, it's that sounds better than it is. It was
Yeah.
a very small percentage. It was like 2% or something. Um,
Oh, okay.
the pension, uh, my brother and my sister, the twins, were under 18 and, I'm sorry, 21, under the age of 21. And then two of my sisters were under the age of 21, one for a few months and then another one for just a year. So the pension was to be divided amongst any children that were under the age of 21 at the time up until they were 21. So it was this calculation you had to do. The Corning initially denied that. They weren't going to give me any of the pension. They said that there was no qualifying benefactors to it. So I told them to send me a copy of the pension plan. And they didn't really want to do it because, it was probably 100 pages long. And they sent it to me, and I read it, and I found the clause in there that minor children under the age of 21 were entitled to it.
Wow.
And so I basically called them and told them that they needed to start calculating that, and if they needed help, I could certainly find a lawyer that would help them do it.
Yeah, they were hoping you didn't see that clause, huh?
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think they knew exactly what they were doing, and
Yeah.
and then his 401k and the stock, there had been a stock split, so I mean that did a little bit better, but I don't want people to think that we got rich off of this. Altogether, it was less than $150,000 between everything.
Yeah.
That the six of us kids were able to split.
And that was so many years of him working and earning that money as well.
Exactly. That was all his money.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right. That's the other thing. That was all his money. His life insurance, his 401k, and his pension proceeds. Yeah. Not one penny of that money came from Corning.
Yeah. Wow. Is there anything noteworthy you've learned in the last few years as you and I have dug into the case more that you'd like to mention? Or what has surprised you the most about your father's disappearance?
Well, a lot of the things I learned due to your due diligence was all of the various platinum robberies.
Yeah.
I had never known that there were other ones, including other ones at other Corning plants.
Yeah.
Obviously, they knew about it, but they certainly never mentioned that to us.
Yeah, such a lack of security at a large factory is crazy.
Yes.
Ultimately, what do you think happened to your father that night?
Well, I think that I think he was probably killed that night by whoever it was.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was somebody that he knew, and maybe that's why he looked so seriously at the camera, because he knew who it was. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. And then, as you know, I did actually review the original police files, the Bradford Township and the Pennsylvania State Police.
And you got to see an actual photo, right, of the intruder at the kiln?
Yes, they did show me actual photos. Yes, and it was definitely not my father. It was, the guy was way too big.
Yeah.
Than my father.
Were the pictures a little bit clearer than the surveillance video, the still pictures?
Yes, yeah. Most definitely. But I get the feeling now that the trooper that showed me that probably was not supposed to show me that.
Yeah.
But I think he was just trying to help. They have since now informed me that I should have never been allowed to look at the files, and got information out of them that I did.
And you actually filled out an official form, right, trying to get a copy, and you were denied.
Oh, yes. Twice now I've tried to do it, and I'm denied because it's still an open investigation.
Yeah, they like to say that.
Yeah. And then the last trooper that I worked with, he explained to me that the only way to get access to it would be, he said it would be long after that I was dead and he was dead before they would just arbitrarily release them as an open case.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it's like 75 years or it's a very, very long time before they'll just release open case files. It's many, many, many years.
I do want to mention that you and myself are both continuing to research and dig into Dale's case in hopes of getting some kind of resolution. So if anyone out there knows anything about this disappearance or would like to get in touch with Penny regarding her father's disappearance, you can email me at lostandfoundpodcast@yahoo with any information or comments, and I will be sure to pass it along to her. We are certainly not done digging into this disappearance. Penny, thank you so much for talking with me about this. I know it must be painful to relive this sad chapter in your life, and I admire so much your dedication and effort you have put forth over the years in trying to get answers for your father. Take care, and we'll stay in touch.
Well, I appreciate all of the hard work you've done on this too. You've certainly brought a lot of information to light that would have never come to light.
I appreciate that. It's my pleasure. Okay, take care, Penny.
Thank you.
I thought my listeners would also like to know that Penny and I have tried for years now to contact Patrick Foley and Chris Perry. We tried 4 years ago when my article was first being researched. We have recently tried again, but our messages and emails have not been returned. Penny had even printed out both of my articles and mailed them copies, but again, no response. We wanted to give them every opportunity to contradict or even clarify their harsh statements on that Unsolved Mystery segment, as well as to law enforcement years ago, but they seem to have no interest. Whether they just want to leave it in the past or still have the same convictions, and in their opinion, there is simply nothing to clarify, which is unfortunate. I also wanted to mention that I did reach out to the Bradford Police Department recently. I had actually never bothered to contact them before when I was researching for my articles. They have been unwilling, for the most part, to include Dale's own family in any developments or any work they are currently doing, so I didn't figure I would get anywhere with them. I was apparently correct, for when I phoned them, they instructed me to call the Olean County DA's office. When I phoned that office, they told me to send them an email requesting information on the case. But when I did that, I never got a response back. I also wanted to mention, as previously stated, the plant was officially sold in 1988 and was renamed Bradford Electronics. The name was then changed again, I believe a few years later. The new name of the Bradford plant was ironically then called Dale Electronics. This case has always angered me. The more research I do, the more I'm completely convinced that Dale Kerstetter was innocent that night of any wrongdoing. But this tragedy is twofold, because if Dale was the victim, he didn't just lose his life that night. He lost something by the actions and words of his longtime employer that assumed he was in on the theft. He had built a good life for himself for 50 years by serving his country in the military, being a supportive and loving father to 6 children, and being a valued worker for Corning Glassworks. The same company that was so quick to think the absolute worst of him instead of showing any concern and compassion for the loss of someone's friend, son, and father. Dale Kerstetter may have very well been swept up in a dangerous situation that he knew nothing about. Even if he did know something, in the end, it seems that he paid with his life. After 27 years of loyalty and hard work to the same company, I believe he should have gotten the benefit of the doubt. Dale's story continues on, and those who loved him and others like myself who have invested our time in researching this mystery will continue to search for answers. I can't imagine how it must feel for Penny to have 36 years of unanswered questions and to grieve for a father that she still cannot find. At this point, there is one thing that Penny would like to have restored as much as her father's remains, and that is his reputation. Let's also not forget that the most valuable thing that went missing on that night in 1987 was not the platinum, but was Dale Kerstetter. Well, that concludes my first case covered on the Lost and Found podcast. I hope that you enjoyed it, and thank you so much to everyone for listening. Stay tuned because I have a lot of other cases to cover along with some exclusive information on them that you will want to hear. I also have guests as well as some guest co-hosts lined up that you won't want to miss. I hope to have a new podcast posted every 2 weeks, so check back, or even better, subscribe so you won't miss it. You can find me on Spotify, Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and iHeartRadio. The spelling is one word, LOSTNFOUNDPODCAST. I would appreciate a positive rating and review where you listen if you've enjoyed this podcast. You can contact me at my email at lostandfoundpodcast@yahoo.com. As always, you can find all of my articles as well as links to my podcasts on my website at lostandfoundblogs.com. And remember that cold cases stay cold because their story stops getting told.